Welcome back, Video Creeps! It is that lovely time again when I get to go over one of my Patreon's requests. And today's movie comes straight from my boy Splattervision. Definitely gonna put his channel down in the description. Make sure that you go and check his stuff out. So all of the love in the world goes out to him, especially because the movie that he picked for me to go over is Phantom of the Paradise. It's a movie that I wasn't familiar with at all, but after actually watching this thing, the fucking kid did me a favor. Let's talk about why. So upon looking at this thing, it's hard not to immediately compare it to Rocky Horror Picture Show. There's something in the vibe. They both have that same midnight movie drive-in feel. However, that's totally a weird comparison to make, considering that Phantom of the Paradise came out a full year before Rocky Horror Picture Show. So in fact, Phantom actually paved the way for Rocky.
How'd you do, I? See, you've met my faithful hand in hand. He's just a...
And Shock Treatment. Apparently there's a Rocky Horror Picture Show sequel. But we're not talking about that. Brian De Palma's 1974 film, Phantom of the Paradise, is kind of a weird case. However, the people who know this movie fucking love it. It has a cult following all of its own. And honestly, after going through this film, how could it not? The tone is set super early in this movie as well. It gives me everything that I want out of a comedy musical, opening up with a musical number. Honestly, it's the only way that it can go down. Now, was I expecting a rock and roll doo-wop group to sing about suicide? Probably not, but weirdly appreciated. The opening song is a total bop. And I tells no fibs. Only a minute into this film, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna fucking love this. Now, the group finishes performing, and then the crowd just falls silent. After kind of like partying and jamming and shit, completely quiet. Until we see Dr. Claw from like Inspector Gadget, his fucking hand comes out and he starts clapping, signaling to everybody else like, yo, it's cool, we can fucking champion these guys. What power. Then, Not Meatloaf, which is what I will call him throughout this entire film, because it should have been Meatloaf. Then again, maybe that's me, just fucking feeling Rocky Horror Picture vibes. Oh my god, am I an elitist? Now, Not Meatloaf starts belly aching to Dr. Claw, that the artist that he has been catering to and bringing up is big leaguing him. Saying like, yo, let's shut this stupid bitch down because she's hurting my feelings. But just then he's interrupted by Dr. Claw, who hears a musician in the background just singing a ballad over a piano. Straight up looking like the dude who sings Werewolf of London. Dr. Claw tells Not Meatloaf that that is the song that will open up the Paradise, which upon hearing sounds really fucking weird. Is the Paradise a fucking new club? Is it a gateway to outer space? We don't know, but I'm intrigued. You got me asking those questions. First 10 minutes of this movie and I'm wondering where it's going. Now, Not Meatloaf goes to catch up with Werewolf of London and pretty much says, bitch, I'm gonna make you a star. But Werewolf of London gets pissed, saying, yo, I ain't just peddling songs and shit. This right here, this is art, all right? There's a whole thing. He wrote a journey about a man named Faust who sold his soul to the devil to become a pop star. But Meatloaf is like, yo, whatever, let's just cut a record, huh? But after a month of no contact from the record company, Winslow, Werewolf of London, and his phone run dry, never cutting his record, but cutting communication. But undeterred, Winslow ends up going to the mansion where girls are auditioning his song. And as it would turn out, these girls actually don't end up singing at all. What they really do is just fuck each other on camera for Mr. Swan.
Shame. 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 Shame.
Winslow gets kicked out of the mansion, And what's worse is Mr. Swan and his pockets that are so deep end up framing Winslow, putting crack in his bag and sending him to Sing Sing prison, where his teeth are replaced by metallic teeth. Not sure what the vision was on that, but like, fuck it. I'm not gonna start questioning this shit now. By the way, quick little sidestep. The landlord from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is in this movie. Just a teeny weeny little cameo, but like, I caught it and I loved it. I've mentioned before that Sunny is my favorite show, so that's appreciated. 6 months into the future, we find out that the Juicy Fruits, incredible name for a musical group, will be performing Wilson's song to open up the Paradise. But Wilson finds the power within himself to beat the fucking shit out of a guard and escape Sing Sing prison, breaking into Death Records and fucking shit up. Unfortunately, these antics end up catching up to him, and he ends up getting his head stuck in a record press. How? And soon after this, he is pronounced dead. But the Paradise is able to open up according to schedule. However, Winslow, not dead, ends up walking right up into that motherfucker. He grabs a wonderful costume and somehow has like the time to do full makeup on his face. Like there's black under and then there's lipstick and shit. I don't know how he did it, he just did. And while infiltrating the first rehearsal of the Paradise, he is able to blow up a car on stage. He's so eccentric. Now eventually Winslow and Mr. Swan come face to face. And once more, Mr. Swan promises to make Winslow a star. Only this time he will be his equal, and he will pay his debts to the deformed artist. And just then is when we see Phoenix down below performing the song, and she is just perfection. I'm deep in my chest while she's singing. It's time stopping. She does a very, very good job in this movie. Fun fact, she actually ends up playing Janet in Shock Treatment in Rocky Horror Picture Show 2, or whatever. Now, because of his vocal cords being damaged due to the record press, Mr. Swan is able to build a contraption that somewhat makes Winslow's voice easier to understand. But he still kind of talks like this. I don't know why I did like the hand thing. That's South Park. Now, Mr. Swan offers Wilson a contract, saying that if he signs it, he will get to write all of the music for the Paradise and for Phoenix, who Wilson kind of has developed a big thing for. However, this contract has some really funny language in it. They needed my sister, the greatest lawyer in the world, but Winslow didn't have Carmen, so he just signs it anyway. Like an idiot! Motherfucker, have you even heard of lawyers? Look at you just signing shit, looking dumb. So Winslow gets to working on his big composure. Meanwhile, Mr. Swan backstabs him immediately. The guy like wasted no time. Immediately demoting Phoenix and hiring a very eccentric man by the name of Beef. And it's at this moment that I feel like I am being struck with a strong allegory for the music industry. Watching this, it is clear that Mr. Swan is the representation of big music and how they puppet pretty faces in front of the camera. Meanwhile, they take complete advantage of the talented songwriters who behind the scenes are working tirelessly. And for what? For that music just to ultimately get tinkered anyway. Much like how Winslow wrote for Phoenix. However, once it's in the hands of big money, it is tinkered with until it is unrecognizable. And the original artist is completely washed out. Fucking heavy stuff. And real shit. Even the name of Mr. Swan's record company is Death Records. If this isn't meant to give off the impression that this is where music goes to die, then I don't think you're looking at this movie deeply enough. Now with Beef, Mr. Swan is able to construct a band for the opening night at the Paradise. Everything is about this opening night at the Paradise. And man, I really start to fucking love this Beef character, who funny enough is later on like fucking Phil from Child's Play 2 and shit, but his timing is great and his physical comedy is top notch. Up until this point in the movie, it really doesn't feel like much of a comedy. There were no elements that have made me chuckle thus far. But then this dude comes in and it rocks my world. Wilson finishes his composure, and while he's sleeping, Mr. Swan takes it from right under him. then orders a bunch of his construction lackeys to build up a brick wall, trapping Winslow inside. But with both the power of music on his side and just inside rage, he is able to break through the wall and murder the 2 guards standing by. And we see him confront the lead singer of Beef, saying, "Yo, I only write music for Phoenix. No one else is allowed to sing my shit. If you try, you die." So Beef is like, "Peace, fuck that was odd," and tries to dip out. But then Not Meatloaf stops him, telling him that he better get his ass the fuck on stage. And after offering him a little bit of speed, he's able to get him back out there. And opening night has officially begun. And the song that starts the show is fucking legit. The band looks like a goth version of Kiss, and they're pulling severed pieces of human body out of the crowd, and they resurrect Beef, and then he comes out with all his fucking vibrato. Fucking sick. And Beef just puts on a fucking awesome performance. It's so memorable. No doubt when watching this movie again, that is a scene that I'm gonna look forward to. But keeping his side of the problem, the Phantom of the Winslow takes an electrical lightning bolt prop and throws it at Beef, killing and electrocuting him on stage. And because the group has already set a precedent of killing things, the crowd is none the wiser, just eating it up. Yum, 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 yum. Now backstage, people are fainting because they know that shit is not supposed to go down that way. And Mr. Swan is noticeably pretty pissed about the affairs. But with the lead Beef dead, Not Meatloaf approaches Phoenix saying, "Bitch, you're ahead of the show now." And then finally she gets to sing Winslow's songs. And he skillfully just holds a spotlight on her. It's cathartic and obsession, all wrapped up in one swift motion. As she sings a beautiful ballad, the film just stands still. And you've got to give it up to Phoenix in this movie as well. She's so talented and passionate. Everything about her performance, especially in this scene, is masterful. Now, after her performance, she is immediately a sensation. And Mr. Swan has big fucking plans for her, offering her the world in exchange for her voice. But Phantom Wilson gets a hold of her first, warning her about the path that she's on and pleading with her to get away while she can. But all of the sounds of the crowd screaming her name are a little bit too much for her to walk away from, eventually getting into Swan's car and then into his bed.
Oh, the hoe, oh, the hoe, oh, the hoe, I say that you's a hoe.
Where from above, the Phantom of the Paradise looks down at his beloved, just getting corkscrewed like a wine bottle. And oh, my heart, it is emotional. It's so difficult to see everything that Wilson goes through, to then just watch as everything that he loves is just destroyed in front of him. And you feel his pain so heavily in this scene. It literally is like taking a bowling ball to the chest. And that pain is way too much as he picks up a dagger and stabs himself in the heart. Flat out like a pancake, just dying in the rain. But we soon learn that he cannot die because he is under contract. The one that he signed in blood with Swan. And in a rage, he takes that same dagger and tries to stab Swan. And this is when we learn that Swan is also under contract. Then this movie takes a turn, time moves forward, and we see that Swan and Phoenix are now set to wed. And doing his own behind the scenes research, Wilson is able to find out that Mr. Swan also made a deal with the devil. And there's a magical videotape that holds his soul. And if you destroy that videotape, you destroy Swan. So naturally, Phantom Wilson sets the whole place on fire. But what's truly upsetting is the underlying story that Mr. Swan was trying to set in motion. His plan is to marry Phoenix on camera in front of the world And then, as they say I do, an assassin will shoot her in the fucking head. What a twisted little bitch. Now this wedding reception is more like a fucking party, as we see everybody dancing balloons in the sky. And as they start saying their vows, Phoenix Wilson is able to get there just in time, saving Phoenix and swinging on a wire across the stage, ripping a mask off of Swan's face, revealing that he has been badly burned due to the condition of the videotape. With the camera destroyed, Wilson starts to stab the shit out of Mr. Swan, but because they are connected through contract, Wilson dies as well. And as he's crawling away in pain, we get our first real good look at his face. And it's more than just seeing his face for the first time. This ending is so eerie. He just dies in the middle of the floor while Phoenix mourns over him. And a priest is dead in the background, yet everyone around is still dancing. You feel so small and depleted for Wilson. This movie leaves you completely and emotionally vulnerable. And the movie fucking ends. Now, right away, one of the first things that you're gonna notice about this movie is the Warholian aesthetic of the entire film, which is to be expected coming off the heels of the 60s. That wave of fashion had such a memorable look, so moving into the 70s and trying to get away from that, the influence is very strong. The aftermath of the psychedelic movement absolutely took hold of the culture, especially artistically like in film. And there's remnants of that throughout this entire movie. And as if the movie wasn't already stylistically appeasing, the camera work is equal parts intriguing. This is definitely a film where while you watch it, the man behind the camera was an artist. Interesting split screens and unconventionally framed shots. Those are the real eye fiesta of this film. And it beautifully keeps your attention. There's one great scene where Mr. Swan is sitting in the middle of a record and he's spinning around in it. There's just darkness, and then presses a button. You see people perform for him, he just goes to the next one. It's gorgeous. Even when Wilson is composing his music, there's an awesome scene with a camera burned all over his stacks of work. It's fucking gorgeous. And the pacing of this movie is spot on. For a movie that's an hour and 30 minutes long, there's no lulls. It takes you on a perfect journey. And the retention is just there. It's so easy to immerse yourself in this film. It never stays in one emotion too long, and it has the variety that you would need to enjoy a film like this. And I think that that's a real skill in filmmaking. I will say though that the ending of this movie feels like an acid trip gone wrong. That ending at the reception with the music and the dancing, it feels like a fucking attack on my nervous system. All the while these characters that I've spent this time with are reaching the climax of their situation. It's at its highest point, and emotionally, it's pandemonium. This movie is a phenomenal take on a horror film, and it somehow was able to invoke this deep terror without an amazing amount of kills, or gore, or even blood. This movie preys on what you think is predictability, and destroys the viewer, feeling out of bounds and exposed. But ultimately, watching the descent of Wilson from a hopeful musician to the Phantom of the Paradise is incredibly sad, which you also have to give it up to that performer in this movie. His range is incredible. I like all of the main characters in this movie, even Mr. Swan, who though yes, he plays the same role throughout the film, he still is very interesting. He has a mystique about him. And even Phoenix, who is extremely talented and strong-willed, we see her quickly cast aside all of her convictions at the taste of success. That is a complex character. The characters are extremely well written in this movie. And I would go as far as to say that Phantom of the Paradise is one of Brian De Palma's masterpieces. If I had to throw a gripe out there, it would be that I do think we got a little blindsided with the immortal thing. It felt like they wrote out the whole movie in its passion period, and then once it came to the ending of the movie, they were like, well, fuck it, he also made a deal with the devil. It'll make sense because of the whole thing. That just felt a little thrown together, but ultimately I really enjoyed this movie. But again, that's me scrutinizing this film. The truth is, if you are a fan of movies, I'm sorry, like Rocky Horror Picture Show, or A Clockwork Orange, I think you would love Phantom of the Paradise. This is a movie that you can't allow to continue to get by you. Also, here's a fun fact for you. The guy who plays Swan in this movie also made Kermit the Frog's Rainbow Connection. Guys, that's gonna be it. As always, if you're not already, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so that way you know when my next video is up. Actually do that. Do that shit like right now. If you want to follow me on social media, everything is in the description of this video. Make sure that you check out Coffin Grounds on Facebook, awesome little horror community that I like to hang out in. And of course, if you want to be a superstar, support the channel, become a Patreon. That link is also in the description of this video. Once more, big shout out to Splattervision. Thank you so much for making me watch this movie. Really fucking enjoyed it. One of my favorite movies of the year. I'll see you guys in the comments section and on the next video. Peace, video creeps. Let me tell you about my Patreons and ons and ons and ons. How they go beyond and on and on and on. Rebecca Reviews, Desmond Flicks and Butcher's Grindhouse. It's just fine how Splattervision, Larry Sherman, Kyoga, Corey Stewart, Michael Andrews, Carwoman, Chris Arnott, Ready or Not, cause this is my Patreon song for you. This is my Patreon song for you.